Hey, I think those Bro brothers are missing.
Confusing gauntlet and survive, you'll get to enter one of your pick of 2 treasure rooms. The other one will be destroyed by fire. It's pretty cool. No matter what crazy soul on earth built this place, and what were their reasons for doing so. The Milton community is a major super mutant hotspot. Though so much of the structure is just far too intricate for mutants to have ever come up with. Besides, they're simple, brutal folk. If they were able to create something like this, it's unlike them to offer rewards and not explain themselves. And quite frankly, the same can be said for the game's general raider population. So whoever the architect of this place is, and they're probably still maintaining it, the place is pretty clean and well kept, must be a person of some considerable level of intelligence. The complex also seems to contain a bedroom of sorts where well, maybe not normal, but you get the idea. Someone very weird has designed this place, and it looks like we'll never know for sure who. And finally, last on our list, is another mystery that, much like the mysterious stranger, transcends Fallout 4 and is relevant in any Fallout game. Aliens. While wandering the wastes of the Commonwealth, once in any given playthrough, it's possible to witness a flying saucer dart across the sky. Following the smoke trail will lead us to a stunning UFO crash site. From the debris, another trail, not of smoke, but green blood can be detected, leading us to a small, dimly lit cave. Within it, an injured alien will make his final stand, attacking the sole survivor with a powerful laser pistol that, if you manage to defeat the extraterrestrial invader in combat, you can take for yourself. And that'll be that. The game makes zero effort to elaborate further on what's happened here, or who this little green man was. Thankfully, we can look to previous Fallout installments for some extra context. However, even they don't provide us all the answers. In Fallout 1, the Vault Dweller could encounter a downed flying saucer with 2 alien skeletons in the wasteland. Later on in Fallout 3, the Lone Wanderer could find a downed alien spacecraft with the corpse of an extraterrestrial similar to the one we see in Fallout 4, who also carries an alien blaster. And of course, Fallout 3's Mothership Zeta DLC centered around the player's abduction by what seems to have been the same alien race, and you'd have to fight your way off their aircraft in order to get back home. Well, actually, you'd take it over, but that's another story. Nonetheless, throughout the Fallout franchise, it appears to be the same alien species interfering with mankind. And in that Mothership Zeta DLC, we can even meet an abducted samurai from the 17th century. So they've been meddling in human affairs since, at minimum, the 1600s. But why? What's with their fascination for mankind? Do they have plans? Are they just studying us like we do uncontacted tribes? If so, they're doing a pretty bad job at the whole uncontacting part. One theory is that these aliens may be the same ones we learn about in the Cabot family questline. Lorenzo Cabot, a former archaeologist who, during a dig in the 1800s, discovered a supernatural helmet that's granted he and those who drink his blood immortality, tells us of ancient aliens who acted as a predecessor to human civilization and served as a guiding hand throughout our evolution. Could these be those aliens? Could these little green men actually be on our side at the end of the day? Well, only the aliens know, and the aliens aren't talking. At least, not in discernible English. Anyway, on that note, we are going to wrap up. 5 more mysteries in Fallout 4 installment number 4. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Which of the inquiries we explored today did you find to be the most fascinating? What are your own theories, potentially explaining some of what we discussed? And what mystery should I cover next? Leave a comment down below. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated. Again, thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone. Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Nate here. And Fallout 4 isn't exactly the type of game that tries to show off humanity's best characteristics. Taking place in the wake of the most cataclysmic conflict in history, the Fallout universe shows us what happens after the world blows up and society breaks down. And so it will be left up to us, the sole survivor, to ultimately determine the fate of this post-apocalyptic land. Or, at the very least, the fate of post-war Boston and the surrounding metro area. Throughout this great journey of ours, Fallout 4 will present the player with a number of choices. Some big, some small, some more impactful than others. The game makes a clear effort to present the majority of decisions and potential actions as morally hazy, intentionally creating no clear right or wrong options. However, that doesn't mean there isn't a good handful of acts we can take that are downright evil at times. After all, this is a wasteland, and it only makes sense that our character would be able to indulge a dishonorable side. And some of these dubious decisions lead to interesting or otherwise hilarious consequences worth exploring. So, that's what we're gonna do today, as we take a look at 5 more evil things you can do and may have missed in Fallout 4. Part 4, I think. Starting off, Fallout 4's Nuka World DLC in many ways seemed to be Bethesda's effort at offering the player as many chances to be an absolute bad guy as possible, giving you the ability to do everything from backstab political opponents to conquer the Commonwealth in the name of barbarians. However, one such opportunity for evil you may have missed centers around a random encounter the player may have when traversing the Nuka World theme park's outskirts. When wandering about these wastes, the sole survivor has an ever so small chance to stumble across a small group of 3 travelers, led by a polite woman named Cora. Cora will inform the sole survivor that she's with her sister Chelsea and brother-in-law Pete. Together, they're fleeing a recently destroyed settlement, slowly making their way across the wasteland to Diamond City. They've heard tales of its great walls and relative security, and hope it can offer them that protection it's known for. Despite being so close, none of these characters are actually all that familiar with Nuka World. They're just sort of passing through the region and aren't aware of the horrible slave ring being run inside. And this is where you have the option to do something truly twisted. Because if you pass a couple of speech checks, you can convince Cora and her family that Diamond City isn't very safe, and Nuka World is indeed the place she should be, assuring her that from its walls she'll be offered comfortable protection and be treated like family. Cora, while a little bit hesitant at first, so long as you pass the speech checks, will end up agreeing and promise to set out for the city sometime soon.
Our parents were killed in this raid. That was our sign of fun. We're hoping Diamond City will let us start over.
Diamond City is a bust. Nuka World is where you want to be.
That sure sounds good. You're the first person to brand new
Nuka World is perfectly safe. You guys have been right in.
Really? Maybe we're true. I'll talk to the others. I think we'll give it a shot.
Of course, everything you told her is completely untrue. The second she and her people get within a few yards of Nuka World's walls, if they're not devoured by mutants, they'll be captured and subjected to a lifetime of slavery by raiders. Now, and I can't stress this enough, there is no benefit you get for dooming this innocent family. You don't get a reward from the raiders, no caps, no special items. You are condemning this pack of perfectly good people to a life of misery for absolutely nothing but the fun of it. I guess what I'm trying to say is that Preston probably wouldn't approve. which, to be honest, fighting Preston is reason enough for me, but you get the idea. Next on our list, The Quest, Devil's Due, is Fallout 4's take on a horror-themed experience. It begins after your character discovers the bodies of some gunners, as well as their holotapes, just outside of the Museum of Witchcraft in Salem. When played back, the recordings reveal that these mercenaries were in the process of transporting some precious cargo to a client in Diamond City, when a strange, unknown beast attacked them, forcing them to seek shelter in the museum. Or, at least, forcing the ones who made it inside. As we enter the structure ourselves, more corpses can be found, and it will quickly become apparent that the creature responsible is still inside too, now hunting for us. After a few jump scares and spooky musical cues, as we make our way around the museum, we'll discover that the beast in question is indeed an angry Deathclaw. And thanks to some extra scattered around holotapes, we'll also learn that the reason this animal chased these gunners into this building in the first place was because that cargo they were transporting to Diamond City were actually the Deathclaw's eggs. The gunners, for their part, didn't even know that they were moving eggs around. And in one tape we can play back, upon discovering what he was actually transporting, one of the soldiers expresses extreme regret, saying had he known that he was moving around stolen eggs, he would have never agreed to the job because it was just too inhumane.
This full of Deathclaw eggs. A dozen, maybe more, smashed to bits. Except this one. No wonder they would tell us what was in that case. Sweet. If I'd known, I would have personally told the gunner bosses in that glorified liquor cabinet dwelling in to take those Diamond City caps and stuff them. I guess we know why the Deathclaw tracked us all the way from Woods now.
Now, in fairness, this dude is a mercenary who's probably murdered a few people to death in exchange for money. So I'm not necessarily sure why stealing eggs is the thing he won't do. Anyway, moving on. Well, most of the remaining eggs have been smashed. One still lies there. And after picking it up and discovering all of this contextual information, we'll be given a quest marker to go return it back to its original nest. And when we do, one of its parents, presumably the one we didn't kill, will be waiting. However, we'll seemingly recognize that we're only coming to return its young, and won't actually be hostile to the player. It's a remarkable, somewhat emotional moment. Sure, Deathclaws are annoying, dangerous enemies, but it's hard not to be sympathetic with this poor being that's just lost most of its kids and partner. Once the egg is returned, the quest will be completed. For obvious reasons, the lizard creature won't be able to reward us with caps or anything, but the experience is maybe enough, or it should be. However, maybe you're not the type of survivor that is moved by all this touchy nonsense. The world is a cruel place. Perhaps the opinions of animals aren't something you're particularly interested in, and would prefer an actual cash reward. Well, fear not, because Bethesda thought about you. As in the holotapes we find and listen to in the museum, the gunners mention that they were delivering the eggs to someone named Wellingham in Diamond City. Wellingham is, of course, the robotic butler and chef that serves the wealthy residents of the town's upper stands. So, if after picking up that sole pristine Deathclaw egg and having it in your inventory, you decide to bring it to Wellingham rather than Deathclaw, the robot will offer 300 caps to take it off your hands. And if your charisma is high enough, you can even talk it up to 500. You wait for the
Superior had implied there would be more of you, but the negotiated fee was 200 caps per egg. Generous amount indeed, considering your charges. Though our clientele do expect nothing short of the pristine Deathclaw eggs. Now, you have something for me?
That's it.
The game clearly tries to counsel you against making this decision. Kind-hearted companions will loathe the player for this. And if you pass the speech check with the robot, he'll disturbingly admit his plans for poaching the egg and making it into an omelet for one of his clients. They're gonna eat the thing. However, if you're the kind of guy who isn't interested in walking right up to a deathclaw nest for next to no reward, and I don't blame you if you are, perhaps Willingham's offer of a few hundred casts will prove a lucrative offer. Coming in at number 3, meet Phyllis Dayleaf. Her tale is an incredibly sad and tragic one. She can be found held up in her small, isolated outpost at Egret Tours Marina. When encountered for the first time, she'll threaten you, demanding that you leave. Not because she wants to hurt you, but because the old woman fears she may black out at any time and harm someone. When you press further, Phyllis will reveal that she believes she's a synth, explaining a few years back while standing guard at a settlement and talking with her grandson, she blacked out for a few moments, and when she finally came to, realized that she had shot and ultimately ended the child's life. Since then, Phyllis has convinced herself that she must be synthetic, under the influence of the Institute, and has isolated herself from humanity. Now, Fallout 4 heavily implies Phyllis is wrong, that she's not a synth at all. For one, we know the Institute isn't exactly a benevolent group of folks, but they don't just randomly order their droids to kill children. And Phyllis's own story makes it sound more like she's the victim of a mental illness rather than a synthetic infiltration. And if all that evidence isn't enough, if she is killed, her body will not contain a synth component, confirming she is indeed still 100% human. After listening to her tale, pretty much all of your dialogue will be geared towards convincing Miss Daly to move on with her life and exit her isolation, which she'll do, and later on in the game go so far as to write the sole survivor a letter, thanking you for all your help. Oh, and if you're in the Minutemen, you can also get her to join that faction and find a whole new purpose in life. So most of the endings to the story are happy, or at least bittersweet given the past. But if you're a member of the Brotherhood of Steel, a unique special dialogue option will become available with Phyllis. You see, once she's revealed her suspicion that she's in fact a synth, you can tell her that as a Knight of the Brotherhood, since she's admitted to collaborating with the Institute, it's your duty to put her down. Phyllis, for her part, obviously won't be terribly thrilled at hearing this, and will put up a desperate but futile resistance.
You've openly admitted to being a synth. As a member of the Brotherhood of Steel, it is my duty to see you purged.
The Brotherhood of Steel? You're welcome to try.
Mind you, it's clear Phyllis isn't actually a Sith, and this action will solicit a very big 2 thumbs down from pretty much every really good companion. Except Paladin Dance, however. He will approve wholeheartedly for reasons that should be self-evident. You could have led this woman down a new path in life, help her move on from her past and accept who she is, or even turned her into a hero of the Commonwealth who would help others. But if, for whatever reason, that proposal doesn't sound especially seductive, as a post-apocalyptic knight, I suppose you can just murder her to death too. Yay. Forward spot, we
Yay.
to Nuka World. In fact, we're taking a look at yet another random encounter. Though this one focuses not on a traveling family, but a more sinister individual. While outside the park, grazing about the deserts, you have a small chance at bumping into Dixie, a female high-ranking member of the Disciples, one of Nuka World's most powerful and cruel raider gangs. In Dixie's company will be a number of prisoners, and she'll inform the player that she's recently captured these folks, seemingly for fun, before asking which one of them she should murder first.
Well. Thanks for being out here. Oh, boss. We were just waiting for these little lambs to bleed first.
From here, the player will have the option to tell her, no, do not murder these innocent people. Compromise and suggest that she just enslave them instead, or straight up answer her question and tell her which one you would like to see die. Does it really matter?
Of course it matters. One of these lucky fellas gets the privilege of watching the other die first.
Take the ghoul first. Do it. I got enough of this world.
I like your style. Save the fresh one for last.
before watching as she begins butchering all of these innocents. It's frankly pretty disturbing. But, again, I do suppose that's the whole point of this DLC. Thankfully, if it makes you feel too uncomfortable, just remember that Dixie's not an essential NPC. So, she's not safe from your wrath herself. And finally, last on our list, we set our sails for the irradiated island that is Far Harbor. Here, if the player has earned the trust of the Children of Adam, one side quest that may be offered to you is titled Witch Hunt, and it follows a very interesting narrative. The mission begins when the leader of the faction, Confessor Tectus, informs you that he believes one of his children of Adam, Sister Aubert, is secretly harboring some disloyal emotions. But he can't prove anything just yet, so asks you to investigate. Keep in mind, the punishment for what Sister Aubert is being accused of is death, so don't forget about that. During your investigation, the player will find out that Sister Aubert used to be romantically engaged with a man named Brother Edgar, who the current leader, Tectus, had killed for being too good of friends with the former leader. If confronted, Aubert will admit that she holds this against the High Confessor. And can you blame her? But it's not like she's planning an uprising. She's just a bit upset. Which, quite frankly, seems like an underreaction, if anything. From here, you'll be given a few choices in how you proceed. A. Agree to keep Aubert's secret and lie to the High Confessor. B. Extort her for some caps to do the same thing. C. Tell her you have to inform the High Confessor of her treason, but give her time to escape, an interesting middle ground. Or D. Tell Confessor Tectus what Aubert's been doing. If you go with this latter option, you'll be rewarded generously with a unique artifact called the Inquisitor's Tower. Plus, you'll earn some major friendship points with the active leader of the Children of Adam. And aside from that, it doesn't seem like much changes. The leader will promise that appropriate punishment will eventually be dealt, but he'll leave it at that and not elaborate. However, if you wait a couple of days and come back to the nucleus, you'll notice that Sister Aubert is gone. Just like that, disappeared, nowhere to be found. If you approach Confessor Tectus after revealing Aubert's treason, then he may say the following phrase.
Have you heard, child? It would seem Sister Aubert has gone. Such a loss. No. What did you mean?
Indeed, thanks to the results of your investigation, Tectus seems to have had her killed. Even more discomforting is the fact that he doesn't openly admit it, but only loosely alludes to the crime, suggesting that the rest of the faction probably wouldn't approve. Or maybe this is just a man who really appreciates his sarcasm. Whatever the case, you did a bad thing if you went this route. And with that, we are going to wrap up 5 more evil choices you may have missed in Fallout 4 Part 4. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Which of the malicious decisions that we explored today did you find to be the most interesting or otherwise entertaining? Leave a comment down below. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated. Special thanks to all the patrons appearing on screen now for their support. Again, thank you for watching, and hope to catch y'all in my next video. Peace out, everyone. Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Nate here. And Fallout 4 presents players with quite a grim outlook on life in general. Mankind developed advanced civilizations and became this dominant species, only to nearly destroy itself and the world along with it amidst petty bickering. Now in the aftermath of near total nuclear annihilation, what little remains of humanity squabbles amongst the ashes. The universe of Fallout 4 is certainly a bleak one, to say the least. In the wastes of the Boston Commonwealth we get a chance to visit in Fallout 4, don't hesitate to show us such a reality. The game is littered with a number of subtle, yet otherwise depressing scenes, locations, and encounters that can really tug on our heartstrings. However, despite Fallout 4 being out for nearly 3 years now, due to its sheer size and complexity, much of those moments may yet remain hidden or unknown to many of us. So today we'll be taking a look at just a few of those, as we dive into 5 tragic tales of benefits in Fallout 4. Starting off, we have the exciting tale behind a men inhabiting the Libertalia. The Libertalia is a large raider encampment, made up of destroyed ships and watercraft south of the Nahant. And at first, the raiders here seem to be just as evil and cruel as any other gang. If not, perhaps even more so. The player can find piles of corpses belonging to simple settlers and traders, on top of numerous bodies in cages and other disgusting positions. Clearly the men living here are bad guys. Well, what you may find pretty unsettling is that these bandits were once a part of a very familiar organization with quite a different set of objectives. You see, towards the top of the largest sunken vessel at the Little Talia, we'll encounter Wire. At first, he seems like any other raider here. He has no unique dialogue, and will attack on sight. The only special thing about him seems to be his name. Well, nearby will be his terminal, which contains a number of journal entries dating back all the way to 5 years ago in 2282 to 2283. And in them, Wire narrates the upsetting story behind this raider gang that he's apparently the leader of. In his first entry, he describes his posse's arrival to this location, clearing out the Mirelurks and ghouls so that his group may set up shop in this ship graveyard. But then drops a bit of a bomb. He reveals that he and his men are all Minutemen. Well, at least so. Apparently, this terminal entry was 5 years ago. The Minutemen had just died. Wire states that the organization and its militias had begun to turn on each other in the aftermath. So he and his men simply left to do their own thing, ultimately finding themselves here. As the entries continue over the next few months, Wire talks about the group's struggles. They make an honest living by protecting merchant caravans and scavenging for supplies. They're not really Minutemen anymore, but by Commonwealth standards, they're still certainly upstanding citizens. Though their integrity comes with a price, their way of life is difficult. Early entries mention food shortages being a common problem, and they're constantly getting ripped off by the very merchants that they're being paid to protect. Their lives certainly aren't easy, and while Wire attempts to remain honorable, keep his men full of that integrity, at one point going so far as to hang 2 of his best soldiers for attacking a caravan, he continuously emphasizes just how miserable their life has become due to these struggles. Eventually, however, in one entry about 6 months...
Damn it, Nate, where are you? Today's meeting is going to take a miracle to salvage the site contract, and you decided to take the evening off? Look, I wanted to keep the old man out of it, but what can I do? He called me out in front of the board. I had to fire him. Where do you stand, Nate? Are you with me or with him? I want you in my office Monday at 9 sharp. We can discuss the contract, or we can discuss your resignation. It's up to you.
Someone there. There you are. I hear you. The Commonwealth is ours! I'm gonna feast on your flesh, human!
You want to eat my dog. That's not good. Don't do that. It's my dog.
Into the terminal, he finally snaps. Wire states that his men were stiffed yet again by a group of traitors, and on the path of salvation, he's realized that playing by the rules isn't gonna keep his men fed. Merchants at Bunker Hill mocked into his face when he came begging for help. Wire ends this entry by ominously stating that he and his men aren't gonna put up with this. He's going to make an example. It's not until a couple of months later that we see Wire enter his next and final entry. By now, it is May of 2283, 4 years ago. And in this entry, it seems obvious that Wire and his men have full-on Raider lifestyle. That's what they call themselves now. Not Minutemen, Raiders. But they're finally making a good living. They eat well and are extraordinarily wealthy in cash. Though the immorality of their new way of life hasn't been totally lost on them. Here's how Wire concludes his last entry. This is the best shape we've been in since leaving the Minutemen. General Becker would be sick if he saw us now, but he's dead and we're alive. I don't feel like writing anymore. The Raider gang of the Libertalia didn't start off as inherently evil. They were in fact once good, arguably heroic and noble Minutemen. But hunger and betrayal have a tendency to change people. And even men as pure as these were not immune to such effects. It's a sad story, but as a wise man once said, you either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Next on the list is the depressing history of Ranger Cabin. Ranger Cabin is a small, cabin southeast of Sanctuary. When the player first arrives, it'll initially seem pretty insignificant, though we'll have a handful of unwelcoming low-fly inhabitants. Once inside the structure, you'll find a skeleton sleeping on a mat. Well, not really sleeping, but you get the idea. Next to a suitcase. At first, this also seems somewhat mundane, at least by post-apocalyptic standards. Skeletons are pretty normal in Fallout. However, this whole scene is anything but tragic.
Go ahead. Hi, Daddy. When are you coming home? You work too much. I want you to read your weekend. Mommy says you're helping all the poor. I love you. Oh, Buttercup says she loves you too. We miss you. Come home soon.
Should you loot the suitcase, you'll find a holotape titled Runaway's Journal. It was recorded by the person these remains belonged to right before the bombs fell, who had evidently just been kicked out of her home after informing her parents she was pregnant. Take a listen.
October 22nd, 2077. I finally told them tonight, and it was bad. Real bad. Dad was happy. Telling me I should be ashamed, that I had to get out of the house. Mom just cried. Somehow that hurt worse than anything else. Didn't say a word. Not even when I packed my things. I can't go to John. Maybe he'll let me know. If it weren't for the cabin, I wouldn't have a place to sleep. Time to think. Last time I was here, I was Carl playing clubhouse in this old cabin. Now I'm really scared. When do you think it's gonna be right again?
This poor girl was never given the chance to even have the child. All casualties of a war none of these people wanted. Jumping in at number 3, we delve into the nauseating narrative of Wayne Gorski. Should the player head over to the Gorski cabin, a location south of Concord, you'll find what remains of yet another pre-war cabin, with a number of feral ghouls guarding the premises. Once inside, you'll be greeted by yet another feral ghoul. However, you'll also notice that on the home's floor will be a curious-looking hatch leading to a root cellar. Enter it, and you'll find yourself in a crude underground bunker. Specifically, a large, seemingly unfinished room, with a couple of shelves and boxes connected to a makeshift dugout hallway of sorts. The path leads to a blue door that, when opened, will release a unique feral ghoul named Wayne Gorski, who won't be particularly friendly to the sole survivor. Once you've taken care of him, you'll notice that the room he's emerging from is far...
Mark, do you know why toys are important? They help children dream. They let them imagine a better future beyond this blasted war. They give them hope. 30 years ago, I met a man who understood that. Your father and I built Wilson Automatoys on that hope. He poured his life into that hope. And now, you've thrown it all away. Sold it in search of a quick profit. It's still not too late.
better furnished than any other in the underground structure, and it will quickly become obvious that he was working on something rather nefarious. On his workbench will be a mini-nuke detonator, a mini-nuke hemisphere core, 2 micronuclear beryllium caps, and a stabilizer bin. This man was building a bomb. Thankfully, we need not look too far in order to uncover Wayne's motivations and intentions, as in one of the corners of his room will be a terminal, which ironically sits on a stand next to a bottle cap mine. The computer will have but one entry written by Wayne, clearly before the bombs fell. In it, he states his belief that the United States government has been infecting its citizens with a variety of mind control devices. And evidently, Wayne seems to think that a recently erected electrical tower near his front lawn is one such object. He pledges to take down the tower with an incendiary device he says he's begun construction on, and vows not to stand idly by. This man was clearly a maniac. To be fair, the US government in the world of Fallout certainly wasn't the most benevolent force in existence. Though the bigger bombs clearly came before Wayne could finish his. And if you look outside of his home, you'll find the very electrical tower he intended to destroy, still proudly towering over the ashes 2 centuries later. So, Electrical Tower 1, Wayne Gorski, 0. Getting close to the end here at number 4, I figured we'd explore a tragedy that's as strange as it is unfortunate. On the beaches south of the wreck of the FMS Northern Star, just west of a nearby lighthouse, lies a small bottle with a paper note inside of it. Interacting with the item will allow you to read this message in a bottle, which simply says, "I'm screwed." You'll then be given a miscellaneous quest marker directing you to the middle of the ocean in order to track down the author of this little letter. Once you've arrived, dive down onto the ocean floor, and you'll happen upon a strange series of pipes, one of which has an odd hatch door leading inside of it. Author of this little letter. Once you've arrived upon it, which simply says, "I'm screwed," you'll then be given a miscellaneous quest marker directing you to the middle of the ocean in order to track down the author of this little letter. Once you've arrived, dive down onto the ocean floor, and you'll happen upon a strange series of pipes, one of which has an odd hatch door leading inside of it. Open it up, and within the metal tubes, you will find a human skeleton. In its company will be a small first aid kit and a steamer trunk. What do we have here? Who was this person, and how did they get down to a location like this? Clearly, he's the author of our message. Was he a diver trapped down here at the onset of the Great War? And was his note some sort of pessimistic plea for help? Maybe he was some sort of maintenance worker. That would explain the steamer trunk that got caught down here when the bombs fell, and then the place proceeded to flood. No matter, the truth has been lost to the sea. And finally, last on our list, we're not actually headed to a specific location, but instead this sad story has to do with a random encounter. While wandering the wastes of the Commonwealth, it's possible to come upon an NPC simply named Scavenger, standing next to what seems to be a random hatch in the ground. Get too close to the man, and he'll turn hostile, saying, "Back off, this is mine. It's been sealed up since the Great War." But if you simply murder him to death and walk up to the door anyway, you'll be prompted with an option that simply reads, "Detonate." Doing so will result in a small explosion occurring from the door. This can be lethal if you're not prepared. Alternatively, you can simply shoot the hatch from a distance, which will safely trigger the explosion anyway. Once the charge has been detonated, when you reapproach the doors, you'll be allowed to enter the hatch, almost as if you blew it open. And when you do, you'll find yourself in a small, abandoned, and frankly insufficiently constructed pre-war fallout shelter. Inside will be a number of supplies you'd expect to be in such a structure. Some bottled water, a small amount of food, a fridge with a weapon in it, and a locker containing some local loot. But you won't be in this bunker alone, as sitting on a chair will be what's left of a man's skeleton. Presumably, he who was once the proud owner of this hideaway. On the metal table next to him will lie a cane, empty beer bottle, and pack of gray tortoises that can be taken, suggesting our well-prepared friend was an elderly fellow. Now, this scene is already quite a fascinating one, but what makes it so interesting is that on the wall in front of these remains is a Vault-Tec poster, with a knife jammed into the head of the Vault Boy character. Whoever this man was had a clear bone to pick with this company. Maybe he had wanted to get into one of their shelters, but was rejected and had to build his own. Or it's possible that he somehow knew of the corporation's evil intentions beforehand. Furthermore, it's unclear what took his life. There seems to be adequate food and water in the building, or at least some still left, so he probably didn't starve. Though, considering the rather crude design, it's easily possible radiation could be the culprit. Or even just his already old age. Whatever put an end to it, it's certainly a tragic tale to imagine. An elderly man forced to bury himself alone in a homemade shelter for God knows how long, knowing he's outlived everyone he's ever cared about. Chances are you're the first company he's gotten in quite some time. But it's with that depressing note we are going to wrap up. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. Do keep in mind it's all just a game. None of this actually happened, thankfully. I don't know, just saying that makes me feel a little bit better. But which of the ones featured on this list struck you the most or hit you the hardest? What tragic tales do you know of that I've yet to cover? Leave a comment down below. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated. Again, thanks for coming, and I hope to catch you in my next video. Peace out, everyone.
We sell everything. Skip packs, ammunition, outerwear.
Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Nate here. And in the aftermath of the most destructive war ever witnessed by mankind, Fallout 4 introduces players to an insanely colorful and diverse cast of characters. From radioactive traveling merchants to mutated men who have actually been around since the bombs fell. It seems any direction you look in Fallout 4 will lead you to another intriguing personality. But in a world this hectic, you better believe people aren't always going to be upfront about themselves with everybody. And many of the game's characters are hiding in some very big secrets that they'd rather not any person find out. However, going against such wishes and discovering their dirty laundry, so to speak, is quite a fun and interesting process. So, that's exactly what we're going to do, as we dive into 5 more characters who are hiding something in Fallout 4. Now, before we dive into this episode, quick note. Our last installment of this series, uploaded in 2018, focused on darker, more sinister secrets held by the game's characters. This one will be a bit more open-ended, allowing for less devious, but still equally fun to know hidden facts. Anyway, without further ado, as I like to say, let's do further. Starting off, Eleanor is a lonely elderly woman who can be found spending the remainder of her days at an isolated campsite just a ways north of Fairlawn Hills Estates. At first, she doesn't seem like anyone special, boasting pretty much no unique dialogue and only functioning as a low-tier general goods merchant when interacting with. But should the sole survivor decide to take a quick peek into her trailer and snoop around, you'll find an odd note on her table next to a pen, and it reads the following. Quote, "Look, Bosco, I ain't going back. I'm over 60 for God's sake. Leave me alone. I've done well enough over the years. Saved my cats. I found a nice little place in the woods south of the city. I'm gonna settle in and enjoy my retirement. Not many can say that these days." End quote. Bosco ain't going back? What's this old woman talking about? Well, the evidence would suggest that this 60-something elder used to be a raider, as Bosco is the name of the leader of a gang of raiders inhabiting the ruins of DB Technical High School. And many of you guys viewing this video have probably already gotten a chance to face off against him in order to clear out the location. By the time that we get to meet Bosco, some of his personally written terminal entries reveal that he was already probably on the brink of death. Having been bit by an infected dog recently, his mental state was already in the midst of rapid deterioration, and he had even begun to see himself as part animal shortly before we got to put him down. It's likely that prior to Bosco's sickness, he was trying to convince Eleanor, who must have had some considerable past experience, to join his gang, but she wasn't having any of it. The old lady just wants to enjoy her retirement in peace, and likely forget about whatever dark past she may have. And judging by the fact that many players will end up wiping out Bosco's gang, I'd say that this little old lady and former cutthroat made the appropriate decision. Next on our list, Liam Bennett is a scientist working for the Institute. At first, he doesn't seem to do very much to stand out from the rest of his colleagues. However, if you speak to him, or just ask about Liam, you'll learn that he's actually a bit of a wonder kid, being among the Institute's youngest researchers ever. Additionally, if you progress far enough within the Railroad or Institute's own quest line, you'll also learn that he's secretly an informant for the Railroad, going by the codename Patriot. However, that's not necessarily the secret we're interested in exposing in today's video. No, instead we have something that's admittedly less significant, but definitely not any less entertaining. You see, within the Institute's infirmary, we can find a terminal, which contains an entry written by a doctor describing his various patients and their conditions. Among them will be a L. Bennett, and his injury will be described as a, quote, wrist sprain. And the terminal will state that Liam refused to elaborate upon how he sustained the injury, beyond claiming that he received it while using a terminal. While somewhat confused, the doctor simply gave him a sling and sent him on his way. Considering the major emphasis the game places on Liam's young age, I can already feel some of you shaking your heads, and I think most players can take a pretty good guess on how Liam actually injured his wrists, and why he's embarrassed to go into detail. I'd explain a bit further, but I'd rather this video remain monetized and me still be able to afford food. So, I'm just gonna let you make of this whatever you will. Coming in at number 3, Abbott is among Diamond City's oldest residents. Looking to be somewhere between his 50s and 60s, he's certainly seen a lot, and now spends his days maintaining his town's massive walls, which he calls the Great Green. Lately, Abbott's been busy repainting the structure, keeping it nice and pristine looking, but has ran all out of free paint, and will offer the player one quest to go get him some more. Funnily enough, you can instead just find a different color and use that, resulting in Diamond City's Great Green becoming yellow or purple, much to the old fellow's frustration. Alas, beneath Abbott's lovable, community-orientated persona, he seems to be hiding something big from many of his fellow residents. If the player decides to pick the lock and break into Abbott's home, which is located just northeast of the scoreboard, sitting on the bottom shelf of a metal rack, you can find a holotape titled Join the Railroad. When played, it features the railroad's leader, Desdemona, calling for the citizens of the Commonwealth to wake up and recognize that synths are not their enemy. It's pretty short, so I'll just play the whole thing for you now.
Wake up, Commonwealth. Synths are not your enemy. They are victims in this war as well. True, they were created by the Institute, but they were created as slaves. Thinking, feeling, and dreaming beings, utterly oppressed by their tyrannical masters. So join with us in fighting the real enemy, the Institute. Join the Railroad. When you're ready for that next step, don't worry, we'll find you.
Now, Abbott's home isn't the only place a copy of this tape spawns in. It can also be found in the dwellings...
Mayday, or whatever it is one says on a radio. My name is Rex Goodman. I'm being held prisoner on the top of Trinity Tower. I think the super mutants plan on eating me soon. I'm setting this to repeat. Ah, shit! Gotta sign off. One of the super mutants is coming! Help, or Mayday, or whatever it is one says on a radio. My name is Rex Goodman. I'm being held prisoner on the top of Trinity Tower. I think the super mutants plan on eating me soon. I'm setting this to repeat. Ah, shit! Gotta sign off. One of the super mutants is coming! Help, or Mayday, or whatever it is one says on a radio. My name is Rex Goodman. I'm being held prisoner on the top of Trinity Tower. I think the super mutants plan on eating me soon. I'm setting this to repeat. Ah, shit! Gotta sign off. One of the super mutants is coming!
Indoor inventories of like-minded railroad members, sympathizers, and escaped synths. But nonetheless, his presence here, next to Abbott's head, based out of their garage in Quincy, the Shattercats act as a sort of parody of 1950s greasers. Just instead of bikes, they have armor. And instead of 1950s America, they happen to live in an apocalyptic wasteland. So, being the leader, I like to think of Zeke as a neat little cross between Rick Grimes and the Fonz. Anyway, what you may not have known about this cool cat, and something he certainly never brings up, is that Zeke's evidently been to Bar Harbor. Yes, that Bar Harbor. As when you've got the DLC installed, just off the island's coast is a boat right about where I'm at on the map. And Zeke's safe. Inside of it won't be randomized loot, but instead, among other things, a greaser jacket and jeans, some sunglasses.
You only kill the weakest of us! It only makes us stronger! If they cannot kill one unit human, they are less than nothing!
And why would Zeke have been over here in the first place? Looking for mods, maybe? We know Zeke grew up in Diamond City, so he's certainly not a native. Unfortunately, this mystery's sort of a dead end. It's much like the origins of our good friend Avid. We may never know for sure what secret Zeke's been hiding on the island. And finally, last on our list, we return to Diamond City. Here, serving the patio section patrons of the Colonial Tap House, a unique candy robot named Wellingham can be found. The droid maintains a snobbish, rude personality, quickly stating a preference to cater to the queen's upper-class residents, but begrudgingly doing business with everyone else due to the way he was programmed. Before trading with you, this bot will almost always say something insulting. Overall, his stuck-up nature makes Willingham an easy character to initially dislike. However, what you may find surprising is that his whole attitude may just be an act. If the player approaches Willingham with Piper as an active companion, there's an ever so small chance that the two characters may organically start a conversation, in which Willingham immediately fills Piper in on all the gossip surrounding Diamond City's richest residents.
Look who it is! Don't you have a book to polish somewhere?
I told you never to show your face yet again.
Fine! I guess I'll go to that. Hey, Willie, what you got for me?
Nothing new, darling. There's one and confidence offering money to other people.
Thanks, Willie.
He claims to love doing business with them and identify with them, but Willingham has no trouble selling out or revealing the dirty laundry of what he claims to be his preferred clientele. Piper is, of course, the editor-in-chief of Public Occurrences, Diamond City's best and only newspaper. So, Willingham knows what he's doing here. He's essentially little more than a secret spy for the media, who doesn't really believe in what he's saying. If anything, the game suggests that the only reason he maintains this attitude is that Diamond City's wealthier residents feel more comfortable around him. The reality is that this robot is an undercover journalist. Pretty neat. We'll just have to be a bit careful from now on, not to say too much to this metallic man. And with that, we're going to wrap up 5 characters who are hiding some big secrets in Fallout 4. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. These NPCs surprised you the most, and which characters have some skeletons in their closets that I've yet to cover? Leave a comment down below. And as always, like ratings are very much appreciated. Again, thanks for watching, and hope to catch you in my next video. Peace out, everyone. Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Snake here. And Fallout 4's coast to where US of A is awaiting a litter with tales to tell. Whether it's the sad struggle of a deadly substance war, or the great jockey for power between two apocalyptic planets, it seems everywhere we look, there's a story to be found. Alas, sometimes these stories can, well, sort of not make any sense, or conflict with each other in the course of the Fallout universe as we know them. Such awkward paradoxes and contradictions contradictions
You
between
might
Smoke
almost as good
and
as a super mutant.
and boy, are there a couple of
Maybe
things.
we will put you in the
Back I
cage
did a
with
video
Strong
to
and
science
Erasmus.
models, and that did really well and had a lot of fun. So I figured, why not bring this series to the wild wasteland of radioactive Boston? And couldn't think of any good reasons not to. So sit back and relax as we take a look at 5 interesting plot holes in Fallout 4. Starting off, Jet is just one of a large variety of chems featured throughout the Fallout franchise. Its effects have varied depending on the game, but in Fallout 4, Jet can be used to slow down time, as well as gain some rather useful extra agility points. Curiously, it's one of the main chems that was used at Vault 95. Vault 95 was, I guess, it. Contradictions in the game's lore are referred to as plot holes, and boy, are there a couple in slow down time. A fresh supply of 15 cases of Jet and Psycho would be revealed to the residents, and Voltec could see how they would react. Long story short, they didn't react very well, and pretty much all overdosed or killed each other over the supply. But the thing is, despite Voltec clearly stating that Jet and Psycho were the major chems being used in the experiment, according to Fallout's lore, Jet didn't actually exist at the time this project was being planned or executed. You see, we learn in Fallout 2 that Jet is actually one of the few consumables that were created after the war rather than before. It was developed by some shady wasteland pseudoscientists who realized the fumes from Brahmin dung could be inhaled as a chem. And by the way, yes, when you use a Jet in the game, you're basically just inhaling synthesized Brahmin gas, which is ew. But more importantly, it means that it's physically impossible for Jet to have been available prior to the bombs falling. Yet somehow Voltec was using it in some of their wackiest experiments. This inconsistency doesn't bother me tremendously, as Fallout 2 was developed by Interplay rather than Bethesda themselves. So if they wanted to go back and retcon the lore to suggest that Jet was an already existing chem prior to the bombs falling, they could do that, and it wouldn't upset me too much. Though I don't think that's really what's happening here. More than likely, whoever was typing out these terminal entries just didn't know the full history of Jet, and it assumed it was like any other chem. Alas, that person was Ron. Next on our list, we have the curious case of Roger Warwick. He and his farm are at the center of the Institute quest, building a better world. We talked a bit about this in our last Fallout 4 video, so I'll spare the more minute details. Essentially, Roger Warwick isn't Roger Warwick, if you catch my meaning. He's a Sith. He used to be a person until a few months back, when the Institute captured the real Roger and replaced him with one of their droids. Now they're secretly using his farm to test out a new crop developed by their bioscience division. If you speak to members of the Warwick family, they'll all remark on how their patriarch
Gonna be a good fight!
The hospital was once a massive temple, and they became happier, and everyone's pretty satisfied, clueless that the actual Roger is no more. Well, everyone except one person. A single worker on the farm has caught on to the synthetic truth, and the Institute will send you in to neutralize this man who knows a bit too much. After the quest has been completed, Roger will be flagged as unessential and can be killed a few ways. And this is where things get weird. Because if one decides to gun down this obviously robotic worker, he won't drop a Sith component. If this makes you scratch your head, it definitely should. As the Institute, in no uncertain terms, states that Roger is a Gen 3 Sith. Heck, after completing his quest, Roger even promises to continue working with the Institute directly to your base. But if he is a Gen 3 Sith, he has to have a Sith component, which he doesn't. At first I had thought this could maybe be some AD nuclear-themed chess by Bethesda's writers. Maybe the real Roger somehow avoided the replacement. Maybe he just learned to play along or something. But there are terminals in the Institute's bioscience lab that clearly state the human Roger was kidnapped, taken to the Institute for interrogation, and the robotic replacement was dispatched. So, what most likely happened is whoever was in charge of replacing Roger's NPC simply forgot to add a Sith component to his inventory, which is admittedly a bit odd, as they purposefully flagged his essential status to be revoked once the appropriate quest was finished. So, who knows? Maybe the real Roger Warwick is just that good. Coming into Mercury, Cambridge Polar Labs is a data research facility located just west of the Old Colorado Institute of Technology. While Union itself is certainly old and real, she's not necessarily as upon your first visit to the place, you'll be greeted by Miss Nate, who apparently has yet to receive the memo about the whole nuclear and treat you as if you were any other prospective visitor. You will ultimately end up offering the player a job at the institution, kickstarting a whole side quest worthy of its own video. Before the Soul Survivor begins, she'll ask if you'd like to take part in a company orientation. Basically, just a brief lecture on the history of Cambridge Polar Labs. If you agree, you'll be taken to a small room where she does just that. You'll learn about the corporation's founders, its extensive military, and, quite important, its role in the construction of the city of Anchorage, Alaska, with Chinese entrepreneurs, earning the company much respect from the American public.
The research experience resulted in zero things to collaborate and led to the success of Anchorage.
Except, that's not what happened at all. In fact, we learned from the Brotherhood of Steel that while the Pentagon was planning to use the automation to save Anchorage, the military ended up developing Power Armor before he was quite ready. Power Armor proved far more successful than any of his expectations, and that's what ultimately played the deciding role in the United States' recapture of Alaska. It was never deployed. Instead, it remained buried at the Pentagon. In fact, the U.S. government never even disclosed the existence of Liberty Prime to the general public, making this whole interaction where only the robot spends 5 minutes talking about him to any random fellow
strong.
Rex. Bethesda just completely drops it from the game, never to be explained. I had expected this moment to be a catalyst for so much more, but instead, nothing ever came of it. But there may indeed be a reason for all of this. The Dangerous Minds quest actually had sequences cut from it that would have to be a bit more closely linked than the release version of the game suggests. But there was a conversation with Litter that would explode Nick Valentine that had been built out of modified cybernetic parts similar to what this dialogue is all over the place. Instead, Nick's ability to read Kellogg's memories is just chalked up to him being really old. And the fact that he may be based on the same parts that made Kellogg is never elaborated upon. Considering this replacement, it's very possible that Bethesda had planned for there to be a lot more going on here, and perhaps turn Nick Valentine's jockey for control over his own mind with Kellogg into an actual subplot, but ultimately decided to discard it. And this dialogue was just left over. Or it could be that this was just the result of
Strong here believes it is the secret to human power. Stupid we find it.
After you open the door,
I shall lift our spirits by quoting from the bard. Good night. Good night. Parting is such sweet. No doubt such The devils are here. Let me embrace the sour adversity, for wise men say it is the wisest course. Thou wilt die many times before the death. The bell answers.
Someone there? I'm hearing something.
Rex.
Many thanks for that timely rescue.
What were you doing up?
I was attempting to teach those super mutants. I thought if they could just and who better to open their eyes to the wonders of the bard than
Yes, well, sure. I'd like you to have this. Now, if you look, I'm returning to WRV.
Go find milk of human kindness with Strong.
Not yet, but soon.
Hurry, Strong. Strong, go with human.
Why do you want to...
Milk is secret to humans. Macbeth say milk make humans strong. Stronger than super mutants. Strong find milk, drink milk. Make super mutants stronger than humans.
Yes, I'll honor my promise.
Good. Strong travel with human. Human helps Strong find milk of you. Strong learns.
Hey.
Yes, human?
Got it? Hey.
Yes, human?
I think it's best.
Strong way to tell.
some work.
I can't help her.
It's a free country.
Hey, boy. Come on, boy. It's time to go.
The boy out, you realize he's a ghoul, and he says he's been trapped in there for the past 200 years, since the bomb spell. He'll ask that you take him back to his old home, so he can figure out what happened to his family. Spoiler alert, good news! Sort of. His family survived too. They're ghouls as well. And the reunion acts as one of the game's more heartwarming moments. Also, you're given the option to sell the boy to a slaver named Bullet and make a few hundred caps. So, decisions. However, despite the enjoyable narrative and unique concept, this quest really shouldn't exist at all according to the game's lore. You see, the mission suggests that ghouls don't age or need to eat at all. Both by the very fact that this kid managed to survive 200 years locked in a fridge as a ghoul and emerge still as a child, and that slaver who asks if he can buy Billy from us even goes so far as to state the reason he wants him is because ghouls don't age or need to eat, making them excellent workers. But we know very well that's not how ghouls work. The Fallout franchise is rather inconsistent on whether or not ghouls actually need to eat. For instance, there's a ghoul in Fallout 4 named Ken Connolly, living in Good Neighbor, and we can find terminal entries about him that clearly state the locals are trying to keep him fed so he doesn't accidentally starve himself. Light him out! And the Brotherhood of Steel faction even features a side quest where we learn about a soldier who is secretly trying to keep ghouls from starving to death underneath the Boston airport. So, clearly ghouls need to eat or they will starve to death. Fallout 2 does imply that some ghouls are instead living off of radiation. But Billy's fridge isn't a very radioactive place, all things considered. Additionally, ghoul children aren't supposed to be a thing. We know ghoulification does stop aging in adults, but in children, that's not the case. In Fallout New Vegas, we meet a character named Raoul, who became a ghoul long ago as a child, but grew into an adult despite that condition. Furthermore, in Fallout 3, there's a character named Gob, who's suggested to have ghoulified as a child, but also grown out of it. So this Peabody kid really just should not exist. He should have starved to death years ago, or at the very least grown into an adult while in the fridge. Nonetheless, this was one of my favorite quests in the game. So, all is forgiven, Bethesda. Well, maybe not all, but you get the idea. Anyway, on that note, we are going to wrap up 5 interesting plot holes in Fallout 4. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Which of the ones shown off in this video did you find to be the most intriguing or thought-provoking? If you have any potential explanations behind some of these, leave a comment down below. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated. Again, thanks for watching, and hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone. Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Nate here. And Fallout 4's post-apocalyptic world is indeed a very brutal one. A land littered with rugged raider gangs, cruel criminal bosses, and monstrous man-eating mutated creatures. It's not the first choice on my list of places to raise a family, but for those who are willing to set aside the trivial things like morals and ethics, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts can be an interesting playground. Well, Bethesda certainly did their best to make most of the choices and quests that the game offers you somewhat morally gray, if not total good guy hero missions. Fallout 4 still presents a number of opportunities to get downright evil. So today I thought we'd explore some of the cooler, somewhat lesser talked about times where we the player get to let our dark side show. Kick back, pop open an ice cold bottle of Nuka-Cola Quantum, and settle in as we dive into 5 more evil things you can do and may have missed in Fallout 4. Starting off, our journey begins not in the Commonwealth itself, but instead the island of Far Harbor. During the quest, Turning Back the Fog, Far Harbor's human settlers will request that the player visit a location known as Echo Lake Lumber and clear it of feral ghouls so they might settle there. Apparently, not too long ago, Echo Lake was home to a once prosperous community. But with the rise of the fog, the residents were driven out. Now, they want to take it back. Or, more specifically, have you take it back for them. The quest initially comes across as pretty run-of-the-mill. You visit the site, murder Vegemite to death, and then go back to Far Harbor to complete the mission and earn your reward. However, if after you finished killing the ghouls at Lake Echo, you wait around for a bit and don't go to Far Harbor immediately, something very unexpected will happen. You'll be approached by a strange man named Malcolm, and as soon as he begins speaking, it'll become obvious that something's not right about him. He clearly sounds not at all sane, but Malcolm will explain that he thinks Lake Echo actually belongs to him. And, well, just take a listen to what he says. Who are you? My name is Malcolm. Malcolm. I own this land. Walking nicely. Started reading it in deep. Ain't peace with it.
I was sent to claim the lumber mill for Far Harbor.
This is my land. Keep me outside or so late. Oh. Let him go. Send him to me. Send all. Lock them. Salvage the gear. Cut the meat. Then toss the remains